And we're live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 51 of Fans of Power. I am Joe Amato, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Tyler Baker. How's it going, T Rex?
I'm on top of the world, JoJo.
On top of the world. All right. Well, just in case fans were knowing where or wondering where Brian's at, there's gonna be a spin-off show called Masters of the Galaxy. So you'll be able to hear him and me and Michael Jenkins on that show on Mondays. So in case everybody wonders what's going on, just I guess a double duty, two shows. So I guess more Masters for everyone. So that's to get that out so everybody knows what's happening. And well, any bits of news, Tyler? Have you been seeing anything different online? Anything with figures? Any like things pertaining to something Masters Pop related? If not, of course, I've seen some stuff. But what about you?
I say the only thing I can think of that I have seen since our last discussion, and I don't know how much news related it is, but is the Mondo figures that I guess, and I don't even know where these were. It popped up my feed. All I know is that these Mondo figures that they're doing of He-Man, Skeletor, and Faker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, aside from they look great, is they come with little accessories of Furby and good grief,
Relay.
Relay. Good grief, man! I was like,
You're like, better not fail messing that up.
it's like not that one, but it's like, but I remember the Busby Furby, from Double Edged Sword, and I'm drawing a blank on one of the more well known little critters of the Master of the Universe lore.
Well, here I got to even ask you something because what you just said. Is it Furby or Burby? I couldn't remember. Is it Burby or Furby?
Because I saw they had written it down as Burby, but whenever every time I watch the cartoon, Chad says, I never thought anything could happen to Furby.
Okay, so, what's weird is like
unless there's a box in the audio where and it could be just someone where the guy thought it was Burby and wrote Burby essentially.
Okay, because what's weird is you saying that well, I didn't even know that anybody put it down anywhere as Burby, like you just said. I didn't know that was written anywhere as Burby. I just thought I remembered Burby, and I thought when you said Furby, you might have been, I don't know, mixing it up with those goofy things that talked in the whatever.
Well, see,
the 90s.
when I watched that show, and then saw those goofy looking toys that came out back in the 90s, and I think they came back out in the 2000s at some point. I remember thinking like that's the name of the little Busby from Double Edged Sword.
Well, we'll have to do a double check. And for everybody out there, I think that Burby was that creature I thought that ate something that made him sick or something.
He ate a lump of Eternium that got him sick to keep Trapjaw from getting it, so he decided to eat it. Well, not intentionally. It was like an accident. It's like he put it in his little trunk, and it just kind of went down before he could stop it, and poor little guy got sick. Definitely one of the more sad and touching moments of the series.
Yeah, I remember, and I do remember that. So the thing is, with those cool accessories, like you said, we've seen Burby, we've seen Relay. If I'm not mistaken, did He-Man also have, I think, his pistol from the '87 movie?
I didn't look at him that much detail. I was just kind of glancing at everything. I mean, I saw the little accessories and looking at Faker and stuff like that. I'll have to double check on that one because I certainly didn't see it. I mean, when I see things that I know I can't afford, I really don't look at them in that much detail.
Well, you just said it. Now that's the thing. For anybody that's has the money to buy them, go ahead. I don't know if it's been definite on the price, but Mondo has done these type of I don't know if it's 1/6 scale, however they describe them. It's usually figures that are like 11 to 12 inches tall, and I mean they're super detailed. They've done other things. I think they've done Ninja Turtles and stuff, but
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken, they usually come with a lot of extra accessories. They're bigger. They're amazingly sculpted, lots of articulation and extras, but I think they're usually $150. So, I mean, I know some people are like, oh man, that's real expensive. But I mean, if you got the money, get them because those things are just, I mean, they're breathtaking. What I like is the sculptors, artists, whoever were behind them, they gave their own kind of unique interpretation of each of them, Skeletor and He-Man and Faker. I mean, well, I guess it's just basically He-Man with the Skeletor armor.
It looked a little different though. I will say I looked to see if it was like a spitting image of the He-Man head sculpt, and it looked a little different. Like
did they?
I mean, like I said, I don't have it completely memorized. So people who are listening to this and they're pulling their hair out and screaming at the monitor or iPod or whatever it is they're listening to, it looked different when I took a second look at it just to see if they really did repaint like that head or it. I'll have to go back and look at it. But it was all three were very impressive though, to say the least.
Oh no, they are. Which the other thing I was curious about is, I mean, obviously we've seen Burby, we've seen Relay, we've seen a movie Pistol. Now I know the pistols that's something they can get away with without having movie rights, but I mean, are we to take it that Mondo slightly has filmation rights? I mean, I kind of don't get how things work. I mean, do you think they have filmation rights then, since they're doing that and with these figures? I mean, I just get clueless sometimes of what's going on of who has rights to anything anymore.
I don't know. I feel like we're being so left out of the loop on actually like who has rights to do what. Why isn't this been released? Why aren't we getting that? Why are we getting this instead of that? It's kind of one of those things where you kind of feel like we're, and then again too, I'm not in the loop. I don't know who is, and it just kind of seemed like when this stuff pops up, it's like, well, where did this come from?
Right.
I was like, don't recall hearing that this company had the license to do this, and you just kind of show up at your random comic book store or a Hot Topic, and you see He-Man items for some. Like, well, I wasn't aware of this, and they just kind of show up out of the blue. So it's
It's true, true. Yeah, because I guess the other reason that I mean, like you said, not knowing what's the rights, what's going on, because I don't know if it was the last episode we did or the one before when we mentioned about Super 7. They don't have the rights to, She-Ra right now. They're trying to acquire them. They should probably get them. But it was stated that, oh, they should still be able to do some of the vintage figures and things like some of the variants of She-Ra or
right.
Catch or whatever. But then I thought I recently then just seen almost days after that they said no. Apparently they might not have the rights to do anything, so they won't even be able to do those variants. So, but I'm sure, like I said, Super Seven's working hard. They'll be able to get it. No doubt they'll be able to get the rights to do all the pop stuff.
It's going to be a while for all of us. I mean, we haven't heard any more updates other than the Horseman sent some prototypes out. We don't even know who they are or anything like that. And if we're not even getting information about that, we're Masters fans, Thundercat fans, we're all in the same boat. We're all just kind of floating around in the sea of Rakash or whatever you want to call it. There, just kind of waiting to get answers. And hopefully there'll be a messenger pigeon that's going to come by and drop a bottle into the raft with all us fans to let us know, oh, hey, we've got this. Help is on the way. You have more classics, more She-Ra, more Thundercats.
Because it seems like we're always waiting for stuff. But yeah, so that's all that, and of course, Sideshow Collectibles. They have that amazing premium format. I think it's 23-inch He-Man statue. Jesus,
And,
that I
and
mean,
requires your firstborn child, for pre-order.
yeah, I mean they do payments. I think they accept payments. I don't know if they've taken all the pre-orders, but I know it's going to be 399 for that bad boy. But I mean, it looks fantastic. Again, I think they had an exclusive to where their exclusive version came with maybe a battle axe that might have been a real metal battle axe, maybe, and then a sheath for the sword, possibly. But yes, those couple things. I mean, I know I don't have the money. I don't know if you do, but if you have it, you can always get that.
It's just a nausea knowing there's so many great things. I don't know how collectors do it. I mean, unless they're banking on anybody that collects toys, works, at a really high paying, stock market job or, owns. I don't know. I have no idea how. I mean, it's just I don't. I mean, obviously, there's tons of people out there who've got large collections of statues from Hot Toys and various other things, and it just I guess it just especially with people who've got families and things like that. I'm like, how do they expect people to be able to shell out $400? Not just for He-Man stuff, but for other statues and kind of cars. I mean, I know, like I think Hot Toys did the '89 Batmobile. I'm like, it looks amazing. How could you afford it?
Well, I guess well, that's the good thing, at least with Sideshow. I mean, I know they do payment plans, so yeah, you can, give a little bit of blood every month or something or whatever, and you can just pay bit by bit. I don't know how their payment
It's
plan
just
works.
sickening to know that it's like you know. I don't know, I'm trying to come up with like some sort of like fantasy in my head, like in the Doug cartoons, where like it could have been yours, kid. It could have been yours. And like you got no
Yeah,
money in your pockets except like a moth flies out, and
that's
you
me.
know, yeah, that's how I feel a lot of times too. When you get that bill from Annie Collector, all right, we need about $90 here for the two figures that you purchased a year ago. I'm like, dear God, man.
Yeah, you definitely forget about them. But well, that's through all those things. But I was gonna say before we start and we get into the show, I got a pretty cool message. It was from Dan Rice. He's a listener. I brought it up in the last episode about when we were given our recommendations of our top three characters, mini comics, and filmation episodes. Well, I remember giving a shout out to him and his son Philip, and saying, like if you get a chance, watch To Save Skeletor, because I wanted him to see about Shigora and see if it was as frightening as I thought to maybe his son Philip. Well, he did end up watching with Philip and his other two kids. And Philip did find Shigura frightening, which I think that's pretty cool. I mean, not to sound demented, like I'm glad I scared that kid, but I'm glad.
Guys realize he is sitting with his dog Coffee in his lap, like an evil mastermind, like a Bond villain. I mean, he was just sitting there cackling to himself when he got that message. So just picture Joe with like a monocle, a scar, or his Jason mask or whatever, holding coffee
Whatever.
and just savoring that this child was scared to death by a creature from another dimension.
Exactly. Well, it did. I was kind of happy that Philip was frightened, but well, at least well, beyond that, I guess Dan said then Philip felt pretty excited about hearing his name dropped, on the show, and he was kind of telling his buddies about it. And then I guess, I think Dan downloaded the show for Philip to have to take to school, listen on the bus or whatever. And then Dan said that he got a call from Philip's school saying that I guess apparently Philip wanted to play the podcast for his class, and Philip's principal then I guess listened to make sure it was okay, and I guess they listened to part of it, and then Philip's third grade class they listened to it, liked it, and I guess maybe they'll listen to the rest of it Monday. But it's cool to see that. I mean, well, first I want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to his teacher. His third grade teacher is Miss Jardine. I think it's Miss Jardina. I hope I said your name right. And his principal is Thomas Lenton, and they're from Austintown Elementary School, and that's his third grade class. And they're going to hopefully get to hear the rest of it for Monday. But that's fantastic just to see. I mean, first, it's great like that. It's sad that Masters, so there is no new Masters cartoon, but this is for the people who say Masters of the Universe wouldn't work in this day and age. Oh, people wouldn't be into that. Well, just look at this shot of just them listening to it in his third grade class, into that, the teacher getting a kick out of it, the principal getting a kick out of it. That's a good feeling for Masters fans, definitely.
I mean, we can only hope that they're going to, like come up with like a Masters of the Universe day at this elementary school here, and that, instead of doing like a field day, they're going to have an extravaganza inside the school gymnasium, and they're going to be playing He-Man and She-Ra cartoons, and they'll be doing reenactments of the live action film of Blade, Card, Sorod, and Beastman chasing some little elementary school girl around the gym. Like, oh, it's going to be fantastic, and
Yeah, I guess.
and
Yeah.
autograph signings and things like that, and but it's really cool to hear that this very, very smart teacher here and this very brilliant principal have allowed He-Man to enter the school through our voices here. We just really want to thank you for allowing young Philip there to play his excitement and share it with everybody. And here's hoping that if the class is good, they get to watch He-Man cartoons on Fridays.
And that would be cool. That'd be a definite some good resets. I mean, recess time to have something, have a 20 minutes just to pop in an episode and see what we enjoyed back then and have a good message. And there's never nothing wrong with that.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, you never know until you introduce it, and I've always had that. I mean, you and I've had this discussion before, and I think even my dad has told me, like, he said, it's like, I bet kids they would love this stuff, and because he knew I was still into the He-Man, She-Ra, and Thundercats and stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, but unfortunately they're subjected to cheap looking cartoons and bad CGI animation and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
there's just not a whole lot of kind of tough guy cartoons and tough girl cartoons. It's I mean, the stuff that's come in the years, I mean, in past years, I'm like, I just don't see the appeal here, and I don't see why the stuff that we love so much, it's stuck with us for a very long time. I can't think of any other decade of entertainment, children's entertainment, that has got the magnitude of the 80s, and He-Man and She-Ra are definitely pivotal points of that. So I don't see why other people wouldn't appreciate as much as we do.
No, I mean, and I completely agree. I mean, we're we're trying to give back in a way. Like I said, it's sad that we have to keep it alive, but we're anytime they talk, that's what I mean. Anytime it is discussed about a cartoon, would a cartoon work, would a movie work, but it's especially a cartoon. And I don't like when, I guess, other voices speak for everybody when they say that, oh no, kids nowadays, they're jaded, they're maybe more into electronics, they wouldn't care. But then when I hear a story like that with Philip and his kid, I mean his class and all his friends, it shows there is interest. Like, would you just have faith in people? And the ones that always say the morals are stupid, I'm like, why? How is it? I mean, how can a moral be stupid? It's not like they're talking down to you. It's something nice. And every one of the cartoons back then did it, from G.I. Joe to Transformers, and I think even Thundercats. And there was always some kind of nice little moral at the end of the cartoon. What's wrong with trying to say something nice to the kids out there who are really into this and maybe worshiping and idolizing these characters?
Well, I think it's also draws for people who just remember the cartoon and they remember morals, and now that they're adults, they think they're above that, and as well as thinking like, oh, Skeletor's goofy, and so is the cartoon, and this and that, and you're really just speaking from a memory because you think you're too cool for this kind of stuff, but you're probably into like Transformers, Armada Prime or some sort of other ridiculous knockoff that Hasbro keeps throwing out of the original Transformers or something like that. Who knows what you're into? But
Right.
I just feel like all these cartoons are still around for a reason. That's why Hasbro is still churning out GI Joe and Transformers. Why Mattel is still, well, has kept, gave He-Man another shot, and eventually we got the current line that we have right now because it still resonates with us. Same thing with Turtles. So that's why it's stupid and silly to think, and ignorant to kind of dismiss the He-Man and She-Ra cartoons as anything more than like just goofy, cheap entertainment from the 80s, when anybody, if you're wearing a t-shirt into some kind of random place, whether at work or whatever, you got He-Man or She-Ra or whatever it is, people will stop and take notice. I mean, it's just one of those things that people have to stop and say, hey, you got a He-Man shirt on, or
No, it's, yeah, you're right.
so here's hoping that Philip can spread the gospel, the good
That's
word
right.
of Masters of the Universe cartoons, and tell the people about how cool Too Bad is and how awesome the live action movie is, and Modulok and Buzz
Oh,
Off and all the cool She-Ra characters and stuff like that for the girls, and stuff like that. So we need Philip to be a good representative for us in his elementary school, and work on his teacher and getting cartoons played every now and then as like a treat or something like that.
there you go. One way or another, it's going to slowly come back. It's slowly going to come back.
It's
So,
such a cool story. I'm glad his dad shared that with you. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
it's
me
just
too.
so
That
cool.
I mean, that's what makes doing these podcasts so fun, is when you could just reach anybody and then they give you a story like that. It's like that just gives you a great feeling. So I was really, happy to hear something like that. But all right, well, I'll tell you what, Tyler,
Joe.
let's move into a mini comic. Let's get into one that it's probably, again, another one that you don't hear much about, but myself, I think it was pretty good. Maybe you don't, and I'll even let you go and start off with it, and that's the Flying Fists of Power. Your thoughts on that mini comic? Go ahead, and then we can just ramble back and forth about it.
Overall, a fairly dismissive comic.
Okay.
I didn't like the artwork. I mean, it's drawn by Jim Mitchell, who did the Eye of the Storm, and I forget. I think he did another one too. Oh, he did. I've been in some multi-bot, I believe. But the artwork alone, it's all right. It's passable, but when you've got people like Larry Houston, Mark Texera, Alcala, Bruce Timm, Stan Sakai, uh, you just Sakai, excuse me. You just kind of feel like you expect a certain level of quality, and of course, this is not as bad as other ones that we're not going to mention today.
There's
But
some other hot, you're right, there's some other hot messes. I mean, I guess I would say when you're talking about the art, I
and I'm
think,
big on art. That's why to me, you will get my attention with beautiful artwork, and I could pass a bad story for the most part. If it's a really really bad story, something that's being released by DC or something like that,
did you
you
feel
know.
like he was really trying to get a lot of, this is tricky to say, almost like human details and facial, expressions and features to almost everybody? Like, I mean, when you even think about Too Bad, Too Bad kind of had more of I don't know, human tones and facial expressions compared to like a monster, if you know what I mean. I don't know, am I saying this right? When
I don't know, I felt like Too Bad was had too much kind of poor pitiful thing. I mean, we're talking about a two-headed evil warrior here that's supposed to be, you would think is like up high in the ranks of evil characters, because it's two guys morphed into one,
okay,
that seem very angry and brutish, and they're drawn as very kind of, simpletons, even though they're not, it just not what I come to. I mean, Beastman even, I mean, he looks, fairly, close to the Filmation cartoon, but Too Bad is not drawn with any kind of menace that I'd expect. I mean, Skeletor's face looks kind of ghoulish, but
I like it. I'm
it
glad you
looks
said
kind of.
that.
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a sloppy, kind of, easy route of trying to draw Skeletor.
Well, that's the thing about me. I really appreciate his Skeletor. It is different. It feels like it's not just the typical skull face that we've seen so many times and interpreted in different ways. You did get more of, like you said, a ghoulish, almost fleshy, like I don't know, maybe a rotting already face. I don't know, but it's skull-like, but it's real gritty. And for some reason, I really appreciate his version of Skeletor, which is one almost no fans really talk about. But I kind of do like his
I
Skeletor. I
mean, I
like,
can understand why you do like it. I mean, it's like, I mean, you definitely said it right, where he's definitely a character, and same thing with, like, someone like Hordak, where artists have taken the pretty much presented the same character, but the face, whether it's drawn kind of, old and craggly or ghoulish or very demonic looking or very, very like straight up yellow skull. I mean, you wouldn't think, but that's what artists do. They take their own ideas and kind of give their own interpretation of the character, and you can't, mistake it for being anything. It's definitely not similar to anybody else who did the mini comics. It definitely stands
exactly.
on its own. So that deserves merits.
Definitely. So, well, while the art, like you said, might be iffy for some, different for others. Now, the story, you said, it's kind of not maybe the most memorable, but are there any highlights or things that you remembered in this that maybe could be pointed out, or just what did you think of the story in general?
It just kind of feels like, one of those things where, we have this variant Flying Fist He-Man. We need to incorporate story. We need to come up with a mini comic to kind of help sell this toy. And I feel like the whole Flying Fist thing, it feels like it doesn't make sense to give, they have the Thunder Punch gimmick in the Thunder Punch mini comic where He-Man's kind of given this extra strength with this kind of booster pack, but then all of a sudden he's given Flying Fist the power to give him extra strength, when really the Flying Fist is the weapon. The weapon is the Flying Fist with the spinning spheres that spin and the shield that spins. That's the gimmick. That is what you're trying to sell, is the items that He-Man's coming with, and to sit there and say that he has extra strength, as opposed to here's these cool weapons, which aren't. I feel like they never did draw the Flying Fist with any kind of. It just looks like a little toy, like those toys we had as kids that had like these a ball on each end, and you would spin it and they would smack each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a paddle ball, but it just looks like a cheap little toy. It doesn't look like, when you see the action figure, this cool, hammered fist. I think they call it that in the commercial, but it just the weapon doesn't look intimidating at all.
Kind of like,
It looks
blah.
very, childlike. It looks like something that children would be running around playing with, not defeating, lords of destruction with.
Do you think that's why? I mean, I guess the reason I kind of really brought up this mini comic is what you're just talking about right now, Flying Fists of Power. And when he uses his Flying Fists of Power, he's using his weapons. And I'm like, okay, Flying Fists are his Flying Fists. I remember I used to always take the weapons off, move that figure side to side, have his fist going, moving quick. So it felt like they were more showing the gimmicks of the weapons, which that's why, was it Curse of Terror Island? What is the mini comic that was the lost mini comic? That
Yeah. It's or Escape from Terror Island, Return to Terror Island.
Okay, whatever that Terror Island was. In that one, when didn't he use his Flying
Return
Fist
to
gimmick?
Terror Island. That's it.
Oh, okay. Weren't his Flying Fists drawn as Flying Fists in that?
No, in fact, they're drawn even smaller than their. It looks like a small, almost like dagger size. You know,
Wait, what am I thinking of? What did I see in one of these mini comics where he showed his flying fist power and he was really using his fists? He was just like you've seen his fists moving quick, but no weapons. Or am I just completely like
I
freaking
remember there
out?
was a panel in one of the books where you see it's like a nice kind of panel of He-Man's arms moving and multiple, but I think he's using the power sword like to block stuff. I don't think he's
Is he?
using it to or using the flying fists. And I know there's an image of He-Man doing that in one of the books, and
All right, I gotta
I
find
can't
it.
give it right off, but
All right, I'm gonna have to find that one because
it
I
just when
thought
you
that.
see the Terror Claws gimmick used in its mini comic, it's done a lot more prominent as opposed to the flying fist. I mean, a book that's based on the actual gimmick itself, it just feels like it just kind of fell flat. It's almost like a fart in the wind. Like, oh yeah, I forgot. We got to get this in here.
Yeah, because I almost feel like that's why maybe they axed the other one. The Lost mini comic was for this one because they at least showed more of his weapons. I don't know, but the story. The reason I find it interesting is it shows again how there's always some different type of origin or however the writer. You always wondered how much free range or the writers had when doing these mini comics because they're always so different. Because it starts off, it's He-Man and the Sorceress sitting by a fire, not in Castle Grayskull
Yeah.
but in the palace. So I'm like, wait, what? In the palace? So you're seeing the sorceress as the sorceress in the palace. And as you know, I mean, yes, she's always been interpreted different to where sometimes she can use her power outside of Grayskull, but it's usually in the mini comics. And then a special occasion, she turns into the sorceress and
Or if
whatever
Mom
the
Ron decides to turn it into her for a really bad storyline.
Oh, you had to throw that in. But so yeah, so things were different. But this one, again, you had He-Man with her at the beginning. She tells and bestows upon him the new flying fists of power. So if he's ever in trouble, he could use these. He could call upon them, and he'll be able to use the flying fist. But I found that interesting again as another place where the sorceress is, not in Grayskull, but there and at a fire, and she's in her human form. But it's what I always say about when some people say, you know, for Adam and He Man, what's the sense of having a secret identity? He could be He Man all the time and not worry about being Adam. But I always, and that's weird. I always just say, I'm like, but sometimes, like, let's say you just want to relax. You don't want to have the troubles of, I guess, always having to defend to do this. That if there's a day where you can relax, he might want to relax as Prince Adam. I know it sounds nuts. I know they always depict him as being lazy, but in this one, you see that. You do see him just trying to relax and not have any worries. And of course, a crazy bird flies, which I always wondered. He acknowledges this goofy looking bird. I always thought, was that supposed to be their version of Zoar? Or is he just apparently talk to all flying animals? You know what I mean?
Well, it starts off as this kind of little quaint little bird that's speaking, and of course, as we've seen so many times, everything speaks from trees to all kinds of animals and mirrors and all kinds of everything talks.
Mm-hmm.
Rabbits, everything. So for a little bird to fly by and say hey to Adam doesn't seem far fetched, but it's clearly just it's a little guise, to kind of like, oh boy, oh, what's going to happen here? This bird's all ugly and
Yeah.
looks a giant, kind of looks like a giant yellow parrot.
Yeah. Yeah. Real menacing. But yeah,
Kind of
it
like
got,
the parrot from Aladdin or something like that.
yeah, only bigger and then getting more grotesque or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was the plot, I guess, because Skeletor, is wanting to get into Castle Grayskull. And he needs a key, but he figured the key would be abducting Prince Adam, and that will draw out He-Man. So it's like, oh, here we go. We know we've kind of seen this storyline or tried to see this storyline before. So this
Because if
bird,
you're wondering what we're talking about, Disappearing Act from season 1. Fantastic, underrated episode.
see? So yeah, so this bird then appears, grabs him, and of course here's Beastman then, and Too Bad, and Skeletor, I think, put some manacles or something to like hold Prince Adam to where he can't, get freed. And then the next scene is you got Man at Arms, you got I think it was it yeah, Buzz Off and Cyclone. They're all in front of Castle Grayskull, and here comes Skeletor to then basically say, I have Adam, and you got to get He-Man, or so we can get inside or whatever. Otherwise, he's gonna do something to Adam. But when all this is happening back and forth and the nonsense and whatever, Skeletor eventually takes his focus away from Prince Adam and is trying to open the jaw bridge and uses magic or whatever. And eventually, Adam, he has to get away to become He-Man. This is where I found something different. It seemed like it was almost written that, yes, I know Man at Arms he has to play clueless too about knowing the secret identity of, Adam to He-Man. He can't let that be out. But I actually think the writer wrote it as if Man at Arms didn't know Adam and He-Man were one and the same. I don't know if you got that out of it, but if you look back at it, it's just the way they were all addressing each other back and forth, how it was written, how Man at Arms is there. Something was strange, but even when he comments to He-Man saying, what happened to Adam, I actually looked at it like not him doing that as a clueless thing, but as seriously. Do you think
Well,
that this writer wrote it to where he figured nobody knew it?
he probably wasn't given a whole lot of directives since he is doing a story just for the action figures, and probably was given some directives and things like that. But he probably was not too aware because the Man at Arms, knowing who He-Man is pretty much the storyline from the cartoon, and he may not have seen the cartoon, watched it, or drew any kind of inspiration from it. And let's see, I'm just gonna say that I guess this really comes up to the writer Tim Kilpin, but it's and it could be where he's just like like you would see in the cartoon, Man at Arms has to sit there and say publicly, I'm sure Adam is safe. Wouldn't you say He-Man, or saying something for the benefit of people who don't know what's going on, like Cyclone is standing there looking on, concerned. So you just kind of have to acknowledge it because you don't want to sit there and say, he's fine, Cyclone, don't worry about it.
Right, right.
Not crying or something like that. It has to kind of play up the I guess the kayfabe, if we want to pull out a wrestling term there. He's kayfabing, what's going on with He-Man and Adam there.
All right, because that's something. Sure, I was wondering too, but I don't know. You get different kind of feelings sometimes when you read something, and I actually was under the impression the writer might have been clueless.
Yeah.
Because it just was strange. Like, oh, you're just throwing Man at Arms there with the other two. Like, I mean, Man at Arms is always supposed to be the wise one, and he's supposed to be intuitive about stuff, and he's maybe not gonna. He might have been back at the palace, but just to see him there with the other guys, I felt like they just wrote them all together. But I mean, like I said, that's just my interpretation of it. But another thing is, yeah, they had to get out the flying fist gimmick. So when when Adam transforms into He-Man, they of course did one of those classic other things that drove a lot of people crazy. When he said, "By the power of Grayskull," he said, "I am He-Man," instead of "I have the power." But well, I guess it happens. And then he calls upon the flying fists to break them manacles or something. I guess he couldn't just do it as regular He-Man.
Which it's not written the way you think it would be. I mean, it's like I said, it's an extra boost of strength, not the ability to, which you think naturally He-Man could spin his fist in every direction, almost like a tornado. Well, he doesn't, like in the Filmation cartoon, where if he wants to make a tornado, he can, which means his fists are flying in every direction essentially. So you kind of feel like I've always felt to this day that the flying fist is the weapons, the hammered fist, the flying fist with the three spheres that spin so he can smack people around, stuff like that.
Did
Never,
you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, never the idea that He-Man could spin his fists in every direction to be a lot faster. I feel like if he was going to do that, he could do it on his own, not because of this extra power boost the Sorceress kind of presents to him just whenever he calls upon it.
I like that. I mean, I like how everybody can have their different interpretation. Because for me, I could not stand his weapons as a kid. That's just strange you mention it. I hated those weapons. I
I
loved.
didn't like him as a kid either. I never had the figure. I just thought, like, how is He-Man? How can you release He-Man without the power sword? And even though I never saw it in person until I got much older, and I thought, actually, this is a beautiful looking figure. I mean, with the vac metal and the
Oh yeah.
brown white boots. I mean, look, it's probably my favorite variant. But yeah, as a kid, I just thought, like, you can't. I don't want a He-Man figure without the sword. And I used to sit on the back of some of the mini comics, and I just thought, why would I ever want that He-Man figure when he doesn't come with the power sword?
Yeah, and I guess you could see things always different ways. Because what I would do is, you're talking about the way you've seen it. I took his weapons off, and as for Skeletor, I love the Terror Claws. That pretty much said it all. Yeah, those claws stayed on, and I would swing him side to side, and it looked like he was slashing him. Plus, I used to think he was like Freddy Krueger or something. So when He-Man would fight him, it's like, okay, the weapons or gloves are off, if you will, he would just take those weapons off, and I would move him side to side so his fist could go like punching into Skeletor quick. So I literally took the flying fist as his fist. That's how it was for me as for that character.
How wrong you are, Joe.
How wrong I am. So now fans are going to have to write in and say, okay, is Tyler right with the flying fist being the weapons or a flying fist being fists? And there is no right or wrong, but for me, I had to just have be as raw fists just punching Skeletor.
Well, that's what's fun about this. Everyone, you know, and that's why you get so put out with people who want to go out of their way to tell you, no, your way of thinking is wrong because according to what I have to say and according to the rumors I started, this is how it's supposed to be. You
Yeah,
know, it's and that's what's fun about all this stuff. It's you know, people get so bent out of shape because oh, they messed up on this and they goofed with that. I'm like, you know what? They've been doing it since the very beginning. This line has never had a definitive canon from beginning to end. It is constantly evolving and changing, going back to this and then going back to that, and then you know they cut this out and they put it back in. It's just one of those things where like you know what, pick and choose what you want and don't worry about you know if some guy doesn't like it that way, then that's fine because you see it a certain way. It's just I think it's so much fun that way to really you know pick and choose how you want to see the mythology. You
sure.
know that's why I think a new movie would really upset so many people because everybody has it. Well, it's the same thing with any superhero movie. You know, in any other comic book, everyone has their idea of what the character should be from Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Flash, Green Lantern, Wolverine, whatever. Everybody has a certain idea of what, you know, these characters are supposed to be. I mean, this goes forever from people like Buzz Off and Modulok and Roboto. We all have an idea of what we think that character should be. And it's a, that's what I think makes this property so much more harder to please everybody because there are so many variations. As we're talking right now, you clearly saw this variant figure as someone who smacks people with his fist,
Hmm.
and I see it as with like, well, that's what the weapons are for, and that's just a small variation. You know,
True. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's
am I
why.
losing you here? Am I making any sense here, Amato?
Huh? Did you say something? What? No, no, you made absolute sense. That's what I mean. It's because you're right. You do get fans that sometimes will get on one thing that it's only this, that's the way it has to be. And yes, there's always different interpretations, different, like you said, canons, uh, ways the characters are created. I mean, there's something we're not always going to like, just like, not making spoilers, but yes, the Thundercats, He-Man crossover comic, which I loved a lot of the parts, some of the parts, which what you were saying and talking about, they did switch up way things are supposed to be, whether it's intentional or not knowing the history of something. But you know, whatever. Some people don't like it or love it. Like I said, that comic I liked it a lot, except a couple elements. I won't say it because I don't want to spoil it for fans who haven't
We're
read.
talking to people who still have not picked up that comic. I mean,
Well, there's some that haven't, and for those who haven't, and when they do, if they are wondering what we're talking about, they can always ask us, and I'll bring up the couple of different changes. But so all in all, this comic, like I said, yes, might not have been groundbreaking, but I liked some of the different points that were shown because again, showing different things, whether where the sorceress is at, how he's transforming, things about maybe possibly Man at Arms knowing, not knowing. I find some, stuff like that always interesting.
it's not a bad story. I mean, especially, I mean, if I'd have gotten this as a kid, I may have enjoyed it, but I mean, it may have even been a forgotten one because I remember I had the Leech mini comic and I completely forgot about anything that was in it until
Whew.
you know viewing it
Oh
online
Lord,
much years later shows you kind of what kind of impact it had on me.
it was a doozy. If fans ever want us to talk about one of the,
I hope they don't,
yeah.
but
Well,
but
if they do, if they,
someday we'll
yeah,
have to cover it at some point. That along
yeah.
with some of the other honestly, and what's messed up about that is some of the horde ones, like Montana and Leech. Grizzler got a solid one. Hordak got a really good one. Mosquito got a good one. Multibot didn't get a. It was all right. I don't recall it being anything more than.
But Leech and definitely Montana, especially Leech, yeah, they had some of the, if you want to say stinkers of the universe. I mean, there might be fans who liked them, but they had weird
That was a
elements.
rotten tomato. That one was.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a fan for everything. There's probably
sure.
a small group of fans who love Batman and Robin. There's a small group of fans who probably love uh, the prequels of Star Wars. I mean, there's a fan for everything out there, and I'm sure if there's somebody listening to this and you're a fan of the Leech MiniComic, let us know, because it would be just curious to hear what, is it just, it was your first one, or you just thought it was really crazy kooky artwork, or you just thought, hey, this is fantastic work, and I intend to have the inker or an illustrator and writer all autograph my copy.
Hey, and exactly. People, I mean, there might be people that really love that, and I'm not saying they're wrong for liking it, because there's things I like that they hate, and that's what's good about all of us having our own opinion. So, but yeah, we might have to discuss that one. But now that you're talking about how you were saying so many different interpretations, that there's never been one kind of definitive canon, how about we talk about, let our character profile this week be about the goddess slash the sorceress, however you want to interpret. Which one do you remember seeing first? Because I know you did rent those videos a lot, or the Filmation cartoons. Was the sorceress from the cartoon the one you seen first? Do you remember the sorceress as looking like, well, as we know, goddess Tila, whatever, headdress, whatever?
The first two He-Man figures I got did not come with the, as far as I can remember, the Alcala mini comic. So it was whatever was part of the reissues, which the reissue figures came with a varied assortment of the kind of more current uh, comics. But I can't remember which ones they came with. But my first and only interpretation of the character was the Filmation, and then followed by the movie version of the Sorceress. So the bird form, that's all I ever saw, and the whole Tila warrior goddess thing, wasn't even aware of that until I started looking at figures been on card when I was in middle school, I think, in magazines and stuff like that. So I wasn't aware of the whole goddess character until I got He-Man and the Power Sword at a flea market, and was flipping through it, and saw that Tila's here, but then there's the Tila action figure with green skin, and that was back in high school, and I remember thinking, like, what is this? It's like, okay, I guess this is supposed to be the sorceress essentially, and then we have Tila, who's Tila, blonde hair, and all that stuff. So I mean, I got it. As a kid, it may have confused me a bit, but I knew what they were doing, and by that point, I had understood that the line had changed, significantly from the beginning to, by '87. Um,
Was
but
there
yeah,
ever a reason? Did they ever say why for, the Filmation sorceress, which we know that there was even a different way she was drawn in her concept. You can see that in some, books. But was there ever a reason they said they decided, hey, let's go with this brand new sorceress that's going to be like, bird-like, instead of just using kind of that sorceress slash goddess look with the cobra headdress, and possibly keeping her green, not green? Did they ever say?
I I've never read an article about that, and I don't know the Filmation Bible inside and out, and if that was a mentioned detail or not. But I know that when they were doing the cartoon, that they looked at a lot of the figures, or they got concept drawings of what's coming down the line, and it's they probably saw the goddess figure, and they probably thought, like, they probably could not, because Lou Scheimer was definitely about making it as wholesome as possible, but obviously maintaining the edge that the cartoon had. I could see him saying, like, I don't know if I want to present a female good guy, wearing a cobra armor and green
Snake.
skin. He probably would have thought, like, this seems more like something a villain would look like. So let's make her more, let's give her human colored, like, generic Caucasian skin, and a bird outfit, or who knows what they came up with prior to the final look.
In a good way of crossing over then with Zoar. They're like, hey, let's just use Zoar the
Yeah,
Falcon
yeah.
with that.
It's
And
like, hey, we can combine. We got the Zoar the Falcon. Let's say she turns, and that's what we'll do. We'll take the motif of the Zoar the Falcon, and we'll just combine the two and make her outfit resemble Zoar the Falcon. I mean, it may have just been simple as that. They probably didn't even think about that. Who knows? It's hard to say.
yeah,
It's
because she makes you feel, that's the thing, the sorceress from the Filmation cartoon, you're right, looking at her compared to how the goddess was with the headdress and the snake headdress, whatever. I mean, definitely in the cartoon, she seems like she would make you feel safer, and she looks more wholesome and
she's a
nice and
very
pure.
motherly character too.
Yes, exactly. You feel safe with her, whereas the goddess could be more mystical and mysterious. Not to sound like two the same words, but possibly something like that where hey, this person has a lot of magic powers, but you're right, you kind of feel maybe a little uncomfortable around her. I don't know, just because of how her look. I don't even know if that would make sense. Possibly.
I feel like, based on how they kind of addressed characters and things like that, I feel like they would probably want to make, if this is supposed to be one of the good guys and someone who's guarding Castle Grayskull, we want her to look, probably, I mean, and obviously they wrote her as a very motherly character, someone who is there. It's like an open ear for Adam or slash Heman to talk to, or even Orko. So you probably want to accommodate that personality with a more, even though the Falcon headdress on her head has a very serious look, it doesn't look, goofy and hokey,
Mhm.
but it looks more friendly with the Zoar color motif as a more of a warm and approachable character, even though she clearly is someone who's guarding probably arguably the most, well, yeah, the most sacred part of this mythology.
Yeah, I can understand that. Does make sense. Now, I guess I'll ask you another thing about, well, sorcerer slash goddess when we're talking about these different versions. But talking about the sorceress in general, this is when, like how we mentioned earlier in the Flying Fists of Power mini comic, where things get confusing. In the mini comics, she's always been drawn multiple times where she's outside of Castle Grayskull in her human form. And that was not just after the Three Towers rose, because I know they wrote one of the stories where they explain how she can be in her human form outside of Grayskull because of the rising of the Three
Well,
Towers. But
it's just as like passive, like things have changed since then. It's just kind of one of those things. Like I just felt like, because particularly that mini comic, the Sorceress figure, it came with that mini comic, and that mini comic needs to feature Scareglow, Ninjor, King Randor, Faker, Clamp Champ, and the Sorceress. Was that six characters? Have all got to be featured in this mini comic. We're gonna have to quickly just kind of break this kind of, rule, and just say, well, and you believe it, because when these three towers rise out of the ground for the story, you kind of feel like, you could buy that. Even though it really comes off as throwaway, like really quick, we need to,
do you think
throw
that's
this in here to kind of like let everyone know. But
well, that's what I mean. Do you think it's because obviously, yes, we finally got the figure of the sorceress, which everybody by then, has seen in the cartoon so many times that now that we have a definitive figure of her, let's then kind of explain in case the people who do watch the cartoon religiously wonder how she outside of Grayskull, even though before that comic, remember, she was in plenty of the mini comics where she was outside of Castle Grayskull in her human form. But always with some different color where she was either all pink and white or just white. It seemed like they had her outside of there, but that was before the rise of the Three Towers with that mini comic.
yeah, and I mean the Filmation cartoon, it happened a couple of times. Mystery Manny Faces, it happens too, and it's not even really acknowledged. But it's just one of those things. It's nothing more than an error in the story, and that is it. It's not like someone was deciding, and who knows, maybe somebody got irritated with their boss while they're writing the mini comic or a Filmation episode. You know what? Screw you, or forget you. Excuse me. And decided, I'm going to write it like this way just because I can, or it's just nothing more than just a goof, and
Okay,
that's
because you
all it
hear it,
is.
because you do hear it debated a lot. I mean, a lot
Yeah,
of
and I
people.
feel like you guys are just debating something that's simply just an error. That's all it is. It's like a bad edit or a goof in the film, or something that was cut due to time, and the the film or the story doesn't make sense because, well, we don't have enough room for that panel, cut it. And then you got this kind of continuity gap. People are left thinking, how dare they screw this up? Well, it's because of this. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes it's just an error, just a goof.
Do you like that idea of her being possibly powerless or not being able to turn into the sorceress outside of Grayskull, only being powerful inside of Grayskull or in her human form? Do you like that idea?
I like it because it feels like it adds an extra sense of danger, because it feels like, you can't, it makes the story, it makes, from a writer's standpoint, you got to be creative, and how, that the danger, if she can't leave. I mean, obviously, like the Temple of the Sun, or the Temple of shoot, Temple of Darkness, which essentially kind of based similar on each other, where Zora the Falcon is captured, which means Grayskull was kind of left unattended, which, you know, if people knew what they had, they could go, they could attack it and stuff like that. But to me, it's no different than having He-Man have a secret identity. It adds more depth to that character. It gives them a weakness, like that gives the Sorceress like her big weakness as a character. If she's gone, she can't protect Grayskull. If she's and that, you know what, she can only, you know, maintain her human form. And so it just adds, I think, a little extra flavor to the character. You know, knowing that from a character standpoint, she can never visit her daughter. Well, I mean, she does in Tila's Quest, which is arguably one. I mean, it's one of the best episodes of the series. That right there, also written by Paul Dini, breaks continuity, but it's such a good story, you buy into it. It's just one of those things that you get to see it one time, where she, well, two times, speak to her daughter, and essentially the rest of us as fans buy the fact that she can't transform outside of Grayskull. And from a character standpoint, I think that, like I said, I keep repeating myself. It just adds more to the character. Same thing with Adam and the Secret Identity. You know, you go through the struggles with him. You know, you get upset because Teela or Man at Arms or somebody's, or King Randor, not Man at Arms, is giving him a lot of grief because of this, and it's really because he was out as He-Man doing that, and you know, you feel for him, and it makes the character have more layers, and I think that's the layers for the Sorceress.
Well, I wish she had some type of power, meaning the reason I think it could have been different if hypothetically she showed some kind of magic powers outside of Grayskull. Like, let's say she was able to, in the cartoon, go outside of Grayskull in her human form and use magic, but it's not as powerful. It's only really powerful when she goes back to Grayskull. Then she's, basically super powerful, like maybe, 10 times as strong as normal. Because besides Orko, who does a little magic, which, they, of course, had to make him Bumble, there's not really magic users for the good guys. And she's the only other one, but she's always at Grayskull. So you can only see it when they go to Grayskull. But what's sad is it seemed like every time they got to Grayskull, you figured this is the Sorceress, this is her place, this is where she should be super powerful, and it seemed like she would get bested a lot. Now, of course, we brought it up like last time. I brought it up about Shigora. Nobody could stop Shigora, so yes, Shigora made quick work of the Sorceress too. But I thought even Mulcrum was able to kind of, with the help of Skeletor, and I don't know if Evelyn was there in that episode Reign of the Monster. It's been a while since I seen it, but I thought they even were kind of maybe almost ready to best her. And I'm figuring, what, this is your home turf. This is your place. You should be able to wipe them out easily. So I feel like it could have maybe added a different element. I mean, maybe if, like I said, showing a little power outside of Grayskull, but in Grayskull, okay, you better do something to stop her. So then when you see her being stopped, it's like, oh Jesus, you know what I mean? Kind of. I don't know.
Well, even that, and like I said, the writers have their own ideas, and things are changing constantly. I mean, like, you think of the taking of Castle Grayskull, where Skeletor actually takes the castle for himself and transports it to another dimension, and he's got the Sorceress captured inside Grayskull.
Right.
So that whole, I mean, and it's really just because, she's not written as the star of the show. We don't need to see her, from Filmation's standpoint and other cartoons. It gives nothing for He-Man to do if the Sorceress can clearly take care of business inside Grayskull. I mean, if there's been plenty of times, Dragon Invasion, Diamond Ray disappearance, taking a Castle Grayskull, and even Evil Seed, where Skeletor is inside Castle Grayskull to save Skeletor. It gives He-Man and the rest of the crew nothing to do if the Sorceress can take care of herself inside Grayskull. Then it's like, well, we don't really need to be here. There's not much danger here if the Sorceress could really take care of everything inside Grayskull.
It makes sense. I mean, no, it does make sense. It's just sometimes it upset me because then it made me feel like they're playing down her powerful, or I mean her power, because I'm picturing she's supposed to be super powerful, and if somebody can take over the Sorceress when they get in there, I guess that's what angered me. But I mean, you're right. I guess that's just how they have to write it, because otherwise, yeah, what's the sense of having He-Man? But I don't know, maybe if there was multiple people that came in and then got the best of her. But I don't know. Sometimes I guess it just angered me. But I guess that's why
if it was written, with these kind of guidelines today, and the writers taking it seriously and understood a lot of the kind of, not just the basics, but a lot of the in-depth guidelines that the majority of fans have come to know and accept and believe is canon, then I think that would be a lot more truth to it. That if you're going to have somebody go into Grayskull, with the Sorceress guarding it, not doing like the original storyline where nobody was guarding it.
Yeah, always open.
Yeah, then you would really have to get creative and find out, well, how can this villain, whether it's Skeletor, Hordak, King Hiss, uh, Lord Mask, whoever the case may be, decide can break in here and stop this lady who clearly has more power inside on her on her home turf. From a writing standpoint, you got to come up with something that's like, okay, that makes sense that she would be bested by this guy or group, even on her home turf when she's got more strength on her side than she would outside. It's just one of those things where I feel like I'm getting too long winded here.
Well, it's a tricky playing field. I guess that's why they wrote some of these super powerful characters for just very limited episodes. Because, yeah, if everybody could do it, then I guess, yeah, pretty much it'd be over quick. But I guess that's why they're memorable. Some of those characters like Shigora and Mulcrum and whoever else may be. It's that's why I always shot you. I think that's why it's stuck in our head. Some of those, and including like Evil Seed. Like Jesus, I mean this guy's taking over everywhere in Eternia. That's why they are so memorable. But well, beyond that sorceress, we'll go into another one. We'll go into uh we ain't get to see much of her. I mean, here it's not me being negative, but I
Oh no,
remember
and I know where
you
you're
know
going.
what's coming.
That
You know.
because there's nothing to defend in that
All
regard.
right. All right, well, you know what's coming. The movie Sorceress, when I first seen her, I remember how upset I was. I was, of course, used to Filmation and the mini comic stuff, and I seen her, which, yes, it's another version, but I thought, oh God, wait, what? I mean, she didn't look anything like any of them. And yes, I know it's another version, but especially when she was getting drained and looking old and haggard, something about that look I couldn't stand. But sure, as an adult, it's grown on me. I could see, hey, very unique version. When you first seen that sorceress, did you just clearly accept her, or did you have questions? Because I know you love that movie to death. But what did you think of her? Maybe an initial thought of seeing her.
I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I mean,
Oh,
everything
did
in
you?
that movie, because it wasn't too long after I was acquainted with the series and the toys that that I saw the movie, and I've seen it so many times I couldn't tell you exactly the first time I saw it. That's how embedded it is into my brain that it's just become like it's like kind of crumbled to dust in the wind. That it's just embedded in my brain so much. I don't know life without this movie. Let's just put it that way.
You know it as much as I do Friday the 13th, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm definitely on the same level there. So,
Okay.
and I was not against any kind of character changes, characters that were missing. I thought if you're telling me this is Grayskull, this is Skeletor, this is Elaine, this is the Sorceress, I'm like, I buy it. I accept that. I don't have no problems with it at all. I thought the outfit looked great with the crystal headdress. And Christina Pickles, she's given very limited screen time, but she's given some good dialogue. And she plays up what. And just remember too, the movie, well, this is for another day, so we don't need to get into this too, because I feel like there's so much to be said about that movie that we've already said before. That like there's more information to be said, and we'll
Yeah,
save that for another day. But
I was gonna
one
say
thing,
be a movie. Yeah, that'll be a movie topic.
yeah, but I thought she was done really good. She had a lot of good scenes, even though she didn't get to do a whole lot because for the story she's captured and she's pretty much forced to stay in this force field. So that's it. So story wise, she's not doing a whole lot of big speeches and stuff like. Even though that's what she does do, is she gives her moments of speech here and there, and seeing as that she's slowly decaying, and which was kind of frightening to me as a kid when I saw her. When He-Man returns as in Skeletor's hands, and her face is all wrinkled and
I
craggly.
didn't like it. I didn't like seeing
It
that
was
face.
it was like, oh man,
Yeah,
this is awful. This is kind of scary looking. I mean,
yeah. I mean, she looked like she was dying because all of her
yeah,
energies be taken away. That was yeah. She was gross looking to me as a kid. That's why I think I really didn't like her as much because when I remember seeing that, I was like, oh man, God, the sorceress looks like she's becoming a mummy or dead, and I couldn't stand it. But okay, so you bought her hook, line, and sinker. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm leading up to basically. I mean, sure there can be others, but I'm going to lead up to only one more sorceress. When MYP came out, what did you think of that sorceress with her Egyptian theme type look? What did you think? Did you buy that too, or did you have issues?
initially I didn't mind it. it was more about how the character was written and portrayed. That's when I really just turned on the character. I felt like this they don't get this character. And
What was wrong about it, do you think? Or in your mind, or in your opinion, what was wrong about how she was written and portrayed?
she was a very bitter character. Like you never felt like, or she just had no. They never
You
wrote her to have any kind of emotional content in the show. I mean, the one episode I think it's called "Ties That Bind," where that's the episode, at least for this series, they're linking her to being the mother of Tila.
Mhm.
And I thought it was going to be a bad episode when before I even saw it. And sure enough, it was one of the most forgettable episodes of the series, just because it's like this is I don't like neither one of these characters to begin with because of how they're written. And
It's almost going back to what we were saying earlier with the Filmation Sorceress feeling like motherly like, warm and soft and safe. This one you got a cold feeling from her, or
very, very, very. She's either just kind of giving you the exposition, or she is someone that's like, I don't have time to be motherly. I don't have time for. Yeah, it just feels like judging strictly on what this show was supposed to be here. We all think of the Sorceress as this very lovable and likable character, and if you like your female heroes like that, there was not a whole lot of personality, even though the character doesn't do a whole lot in the show. She just there was nothing memorable about her at all. It's just I can't think of a single time where I felt like, you know what, that was actually a pretty good moment. Not once.
what about her powers? Do you feel like they kind of, at least when she was there and protecting Grayskull, did they ever do her right in your opinion, or no? Or
No, I never saw her as anything more than she's a very kind of poor interpretation of the character, because they never really did a whole lot, devoted to her. And I mean, not that Filmation, she was in so many episodes, but she was either captured or, telling He-Man, look, something's coming, you need to get here and stop it, kind of thing. In which she did some of that in NYP. She just, and it's not the whole thing of like, oh well, you're just nostalgia, or you're older now, so you're just clinging to what was when you were young. I was like, no, it's not. That's not the case.
old
I
man
could,
Baker? It's old man Baker throwing the rocks at the kids coming at his house, like, you get off my lawn.
well, just know I'm the youngest between me and Joe here. I'm a lot young. I mean, not a whole lot younger.
What you trying to say?
Well, I'm just saying that the old man mentality is from the youngest guy, talking here.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, because I could do a whole nother podcast with you talking about episodes I was not too much of a fan of that I love as an adult now. And so it's not that. I just, because MYP got a lot of good things right, but they also screwed up a lot of things. But the Sorceress, it wasn't like a something where I felt like, oh man, they really screwed up on this one, like they did with King Grayskull, that whole idea.
Did you
But
dig her design out at all a little bit? Or
it was all right. It just felt like they're just trying to do something different and new for the
yeah,
show, and I took it nothing more than that. I'm like, it's not a sin. It's not something that offends me or bothers
I
me.
liked it. I mean, I liked her design. It was
It
different.
was
Yeah.
fine. It didn't bother me. It's more about how she was written. I'm like, man, this character sucks.
Yeah. I guess that's for the more jaded, like I said, how we were talking about, hey, the kids are jaded now. Let's make her a little, oh my God, I'm starting to talk like you. And you're like, hey, man, you got to do this, man. I didn't know if you ever noticed you do that. But, no, I guess maybe they're writing it for maybe a different generation, thinking, let's make it a little more serious, especially if people were saying the Filmation one was, so, corny or hokey and too kiddie
Well,
like.
there was nothing cool or witty or like, oh man, yeah, this is the modern series here, guy. Like, no, there's nothing memorable about her. There's nothing to write home about. There's nothing to cling to. And I mean, maybe for people who never saw the original cartoon and they saw this new He-Man cartoon on Cartoon Network and thought, wow, this is cool. All right, you get a pass, because at that time you had nothing. I'm only giving a pass to youngsters who watch the MYP, people who grew up on or remember the Filmation cartoon, grew up watching it. That's where I feel like, you know, but I guess it's you know what, I take it back. I'm gonna stop right where I'm at. If you like that character better than Filmation, you have every right to. I'm not going to be condescending and talk down to you because you feel this. No, 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 no. This is not what this show's about.
Yeah, there you go. Don't you be talking down to people, Tyler.
Lord knows I've heard plenty of people trash the He-Man, live action movie, and I just want to go to war over it for the reasons they say it. If
I've
it was
never
legit,
trashed.
huh?
I never trashed that crap. I mean, I never trashed that movie.
Oh, of course not. And I never trash, this knockoff meteorbs.
Now that was pretty low. That was called no,
So it's like, you want to play with fire here, man? I mean,
no.
you've
But
got the
I
Fire Lord here.
Like I said, I do like the movie. Like I said, as a kid, now I appreciate it. So I guess before we wrap it up, how about with the four versions of the Sorceress in different forms? We can rate them from best to least favorite. I guess I'll just let me start off because I'm sure we're going to have a different way we say this. My top Sorceress is Filmation. The second one, I'm going to go with Goddess slash Sorceress from the mini comics. Third, MYP, and fourth, movie Sorceress. So that's
Oh boy.
I know you don't like that, but go ahead. Your best to worst.
Best would be Filmation. Second would be the movie. Third would be the Goddess, and MYP would be dead last.
Oh wow. Okay. There we go. Oh, we definitely did vary, and I figured we would. So, well, that was it. That was a good episode. So,
But it just goes to show that Linda Gary's portrayal as the sorceress, in the cartoon was very memorable and just extremely likable. I mean, even if she's, oh, something's been released by the Horn of Evil, it's broken into Grayskull and taken her, and she's overpowered by some sort of, mystic werewolf or some sort of, whatever the case may be.
who would
You
have thought that the person who protects Grayskull would become the damsel in distress, the most powerful person on Eternia next to He-Man? You'd think good-wise. She's the damsel in distress. That don't make any sense. That's not
Yep.
right.
No, but you know what? The character's so likable, and Linda Gary makes her likable,
She
unlike
does.
Tila. Evelyn is more likable, and she's a villain.
Love Evil Lynn. Yep, you got your issues with Teal. We'll have to like do a I don't know a Doctor Phil episode where we wonder what is your issue with Teal, and the fans will have to write in with the questions or something saying
If you mentioned
Tyler.
we did get Dr. Phil to come on the show, like, Tyler, what is your problem with Tila, Captain of the Guard? Now,
Yeah, you got some bad issues. So, well, all right, man. Well, how about we wrap this up? So you go ahead. You give your closing remarks and any of the episodes you want to recommend. You go on ahead.
let's see. Since we're doing Sorcerer's discussion here, I'm going to go with Tila's Quest, which you know for kids listening or anybody who's never seen the episode, it's probably the best Sorceress episode. Even though she's not in it a whole lot, there's a really good moment with her and Teal at the end of the episode. It's a good little one of the few good, genuinely good, well written emotional moments of the series, and it's probably the best Tila episode too. I will say that she's written um, very well, even though she is the damsel in distress by the end of the episode, because we got to get He-Man into action here. It's probably the best time that Tila's ever been written from beginning to end.
Okay.
And same thing with the Sorceress there. So that's my recommendation for He-Man. And then for Thundercats, um, it's getting to where like I hate or thinking I'm going to like repeat myself or something like that. But I'm going to go with Slaves of Castle Plundar from season 1, which is a one of the first episodes after they've kind of established themselves on Third Earth, and it's pretty much the Thundercats versus the three mutants as they are building their evil headquarters, Castle Plundar. They're fighting the mutants to save the Brute Men from being slaves to them. It's a very simple story, but it's a fun kind of ABC story to kind of get you acquainted with the core characters of the show. So it's like a good beginning episode. If you don't want to watch Exodus or just a random episode, that'd be a good one to start with.
Okay, yeah, and I guess if well, fans would have to get them on DVD. Otherwise, you have to pay to see those on YouTube. Correct?
That, or you can purchase the entire 2 seasons of Thundercats on iTunes, episode each, or in bulk, whatever you want to do. Or
Okay.
yeah, because I bought several episodes of He-Man, and I don't think He-Man's available on iTunes right now. They've taken that show away, that and She-Ra a couple of times, and I think as of right now, it's not available to purchase. But Thundercats is.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, I didn't know either, because I every now and then I'm like, you know what, I feel like buying that and being able to play that when I'm going home or something like that. I'm like, great, they're not available right now, but Thundercat still is. So if
All
you want
right.
to buy a sample of it, you can do that.
All right. Well, cool.
Joe,
Okay.
Joe, before you wrap up, we had originally talked about the fact that you were going to have a special guest on this episode. Obviously, something has happened, so can you talk about that a little bit before you wrap up?
What's funny is when wrapping up, I was going to mention that, and I was also going to mention and I was also going to mention about us doing a new recording platform. I was kind of, but yeah, I will do that. Okay, and well, guys, I was going to say we were going to have a special guest on today. I still want to leave it as a surprise, but he couldn't make it this episode. There was I think there's some issues maybe with his internet connection, but we're going to hopefully try to have him on for our next episode, which will be that'll be our big episode. That's going to be episode 52. That's 52 straight weeks of the, podcasts. So 1 year, and also our Halloween special. So hopefully he makes it for next week. And we're going to, in case you guys were wondering, we're trying a new, I guess, a recording platform, if you will. We're going through Google Hangouts now. So hopefully this sounds a lot clearer than our, the other episodes have been sounding, and we apologize for that. But hopefully this will sound clear, and then we can try to give you links of how to do, check us out through YouTube live when we start doing these. In the future episodes, you can hopefully catch us live and leave comments. So that'll be something new and fun, and especially with doing through YouTube, maybe we'll flash up pictures of things we're talking about. So in case you're wondering, wait, what episode? And wait, what are they talking about in the comic? We can maybe give you a little bit of examples. So that's to at least get that out the way. And also, as for places to go, be sure to always go to popculturenetwork.com, hemanworld.com, fansofpower.com. And for on Facebook, you can always go to Masters of the Universe. It's He-Man and She-Ra Ultimate Fan Group. It's a group I created. Pretty fun. Nice place to just sit around and discuss stuff. And want to give a shout out to a couple listeners that were saying some stuff to me, and just saying hey and liking the show, to Joshua Mead and Jeremy DeWitt. I always appreciate your guys' feedback and what you have to say. So always thanks for being dedicated listeners to the show too.
I guess, but before, right before too, I want to reiterate kind of along those lines. I just want to thank everybody who has listened to the show, either from the beginning to as you're listening to this current one, or you got started at some other point. You love listening to the show. You shared your support, or maybe you don't even know who Joe and I are, and just listen to the show casually. But I want to thank everybody who listens to the show weekly basis, every other week, or just every so often, or whatever. Just appreciate, and everybody who's came to us and told us you enjoyed the show on Facebook or in messages or emails or whatever the case may be. It's much appreciated to hear the kind of support that people appreciate that we do this, and that we enjoy doing it, and that people enjoy listening to it. So everybody who listens to it, I really want to thank you greatly for appreciating our efforts.
Very well said. I concur.
And before you wrap, I just want to give a shout out to, I'm guessing it's pronounced Dongi Forever, maybe it's Dungi Forever, on YouTube, who is currently in the live chat watching the live stream. So just a shout out to him for being here.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. We want to thank him for that. Absolutely.
And he can comment and anything he wants next time, because, we're about ready to wrap it up now. But yeah, thank you very much. So, with that being said, let me just say, have a powerful day.
Hey, kid, welcome to the war.